Can everyone hear us online?
Thumbs up? Oh, I see
Wonderful.
heads nodding. I see heads nodding.
Okay,
All right.
and we are live.
Okay, aloha mai kako. My name is Dawn Chang. I am co-chair, one of the co-chairs of the CCMAC, along with Mary Alice Evans, who shares the co-chair with me. So I'm hoping you're here for the right meeting, the CCMAC meeting. We are meeting more regularly. So thank you for being here. We are, let me just do some housekeeping things or some preliminary things before we go into our agenda. We are moving, we are going to change our agenda a bit so that we can accommodate our, the governor's climate advisory team, and we're going to move them up on the agenda. So they will come after the minutes. And then we are deferring items number 5 and 7, discussion and approval approval of recommended actions for year of climate action. We're going to try to do that next meeting, as well as item number 7, presentation on recommended legislative policy and budget requests for the year of climate action. We're also going to defer that. So this may be we'll see what the discussion is, but a fairly expeditious meeting. So with that being said, we do have Zoom, and many of you have joined us via Zoom. We also, so they can participate, they can chat too?
Oh, no, the chat's been disabled,
Okay,
but you can
okay.
chat to me.
Okay, so you can chat directly to Leah. So if you could unmute when you are not speaking and keep your video on unless doing something, so trying to avoid, so we can watch you so you're not doing multitasking and paying attention. Just joking, I'm always doing that myself. So with that, I'm going to first start off with roll call. And to facilitate this, I'm going to acknowledge the various agencies. And then if you could please say if you're here or not. Chair Chang, here. Co-chair Mary Alice?
Here.
Okay. Chair of Senator Gabbard, Chair of Agriculture and Environment.
Present on behalf of Senator Gabbard.
Oh, very good. Thank you. Chair of the Senate Water and Land, Senator Inouye. Okay. Chair of the House Energy and Environmental Protection Committee.
Aloha, here.
Aloha, Representative Lowen. Chair of the Water and Land, Chair Ichiyama.
Excuse.
Okay. Chairperson of HTA or your designee. Okay.
I think Lindsay Sanborn is here.
Hello, hi. Yes, I am here. I'm representing HTA, Lindsay Sanborn.
Thank you very much, Lindsay. Chairperson of Department of Ag or your designee. Earl, are you here?
Here and alone. Am I visible?
No, you're not. We see portions of your ceiling.
Oh, okay. Okay,
Okay,
yeah, I'm running a 286 over here, so
all right.
running a
Perfect.
286 processor, so I'm having a hard time.
That's okay. You're doing good. You're perfect.
How
Thank
about
you,
now?
Earl.
Okay.
Okay. Do I have CEO of OHA, Stacy?
Excused.
Okay. Do I have the chairperson or designee of Department of Hawaiian Homelands?
Aloha, Katie Lambert, here on behalf of the chair.
Thank you very much, Katie. Do I have Director Ed Sniffen or his designee? Okay. Director of Department of Health or oh, I see. Hannah, okay.
Dr. Fing.
Thank you. Chairperson of DOE or designee? Okay. Director of the City and County of Planning and Permitting or your
Matt
designee?
Gonzer on behalf of Honolulu DPP Director Donna Puna.
Thank you very much, Matt. Director of Maui Department of Planning. Pete?
Aloha, Chair. I'm here today. Good to see you all.
Very good. Director of Hawaii Department of Planning.
Aloha, Bethany Morrison, here on behalf of Director of Planning for Hawaii County.
Thank you very much. Director of Kauai Department of Planning,
Excused.
excused, okay. Do I have the Adjutant General or designee?
Don't see
No,
anyone.
okay. Manager of Coastal Zone Management? Absent, okay. Director of DBED or designees? Mark?
Yeah, Mark Blick here on behalf of DBED.
Thank you very much, Mark. I think, is that the list?
Yep, and we have quorum.
And we have quorum. That's also, okay. So with that, I am going to now, let's see. Does anybody have, Leah, could you introduce your staff that's present?
Yep, aloha. Leah Laramie, Climate Change Coordinator. We also have on Zoom, we have Jen, Jonathan, and Bill from the CCMAC team. And in the room, we have Natalie, who is our new Climate Action Associate. And we also have, not my staff, but DLNR staff, Michael Kane and Amy Wirtz in the room.
Thank you very much. I'm going to now ask for any announcements from any of the members. Okay, seeing no hands up or no announcements, we'll move on to item 2. It is approval of the July 3rd, 2024 minutes. They were just distributed to you this morning. I hope you've had time to take a look at them. If so, are there any questions or comments? Or do I have a motion?
I move to accept the minutes.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. I have a motion has been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of July 3rd, 2024. We do it differently, but let's, all in favor, please raise your hand. Is there anybody opposed? Seeing no opposition, the motion passes. The minutes are approved. Next item on the agenda is our move up. We're going to take a presentation from the Governor's Climate Advisory Team, otherwise known as CAT. Thank you.
Thank you.
And you guys are all welcome to join up here if you want. Come be a family.
No shame here. Oops. Uh-oh. Thank you very much. Good to see all of you.
I apologize. I'll have to step out very briefly in the middle. Please just ignore me.
Thank you, coaches, for that.
Thank you. Oh, of course.
And many thanks to Leah for suggesting that we come, looking at the screen and looking at the room, I see a lot of familiar faces because so many people are working on climate related matters these days, and that coordination is so important. And I think I've really been encouraged over the last year how many linkages there are between the various climate related undertakings, and Leah's a big part of that. So we appreciate being here. I'll introduce the team in a moment when I get to that part in the slide deck, but I'll go through the slides that Leah is now showing on the screen. So our objective today is twofold. One is to simply try to provide more clarity about what the climate advisory team's role is. Why was it established? What are we trying to do? And then also begin the dialogue with this group to get input, to answer questions. I don't expect that this will be, I hope it's not the last interaction. I think that it will be an ongoing process. And as you'll see in the presentation, we're casting a very wide net for input, and we hope to have more conversations with this group going forward. So the governor established the climate advisory team really with the focus, even though the name climate advisory team sounds very, very broad, and certainly our topics are broad, they're not quite as broad as all things climate. His focus when he created our team was he charged us with developing policy recommendations to minimize the impacts of future climate related disasters and to mitigate the impacts of those disasters. So we're not saying that it's our goal to prevent disasters. We know that that's not possible, even though we want to do everything we can on the mitigation front to reduce their intensity and their probability. We recognize that we have to be preparing for the inevitability of them. And that was really the charge that he gave us, was to try to craft a legislative package that can advance our readiness for future disasters. We want to take action, and he wants to take action in 2025, working with the legislature and the many stakeholders that need to be involved. But he also recognizes that the problem won't be solved overnight. And in his remarks the day that he announced this, he said, in time, we have to get this tiger by the tail. Now, that's not a cop-out. That's not to say that we don't want to accomplish great things in the coming legislative session, but it is an acknowledgement that this is going to be a long-term process. So the problems have been a long time in the making, and addressing them will take time as well. On the next slide, we have an overview of the advisory team itself. And you might as well go ahead and just build the slide, because I think it helps give the framework. There are really two parts to the team. The right-hand part of the team was actually already in place before I got involved a few months ago, and the rest of us got involved. And those are the consultants that have been working with the governor really since very shortly after the Maui wildfires last year. So they are attorneys, financial analysts who are helping the governor craft responses, including the creation of the One Ohana Fund, the dealing with the litigation, and of course the settlement that is forthcoming that's been described in the media. That team was already working, and they bring a wealth of information. But what the governor created with the CAT was a local team of folks from across industries and across sort of vertical or functional areas of expertise. I'm serving as the chair, and his background, I'm a retired business executive who now spends really all of my time in climate-related matters. I chair an organization called Climate Hawaii, and I also now am chairing the climate advisory team. Denise Antolini, who's here with us today, who is a retired UH law professor, I'm sure you all know, who has been very passionate and active in environmental and conservation-related work. Robin Campagnano, who is to my left, who is well, we claim that we're retired, but doesn't feel that way. A mostly retired executive of the insurance industry and a former Hawaii insurance commissioner. So brings a tremendous amount of knowledge on the insurance side, the disaster recovery side. Chip Fletcher, who needs no introduction and is on the screen right now. Kavika Riley, who is with Kupu Hawaii, and also brings tremendous, not only government relations expertise, but also knowledge of environment and conservation, and a lot of work, has worked a lot with Denise in the past on environmental conservation measures. And then Gwen Yamamoto Lau, whom you probably all know as
I
well.
think it's also.
Is she on?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, great. Hi, Gwen. Who is just amazing in her role with the Hawaii Green Infrastructure Authority, and really brings a tremendous amount of knowledge of financing strategies and resilience efforts. So we feel that we've built a really good team with a diverse set of skills, expertise, and past experiences. And so together, this team is the climate advisory team. So our approach is to leverage what the governor feels is, a really vital combination of local knowledge and relationships, subject matter expertise, and experience in addressing climate disasters to tap into other local knowledge of experts in various fields, stakeholders in the community who are going to be dealing with this, whether it's in the local communities or statewide industry groups or state agencies, the legislature. We're casting a very wide net, as I said before, and I'll talk about that more in a minute, to get as much input as we can. And then our objective is to create a comprehensive strategy that not only addresses priorities for 2025, but also beyond, and begins to build a foundation for the future in terms of climate disaster preparation and resilience. Now, we have to recognize that financial resources are constrained and are going to be a major consideration. The cost of this work, both from a prevention and a recovery standpoint, or a resilience and recovery standpoint, are going to be great. We'll do everything we can to identify federal funds that can be tapped as essentially free money, at least free to the local community. But we're also going to have to look at other funding sources, and so those will be important discussions. Our timeline on the next slide is that this summer, right now, we're focused on engaging with a wide range of stakeholders, as I've said a couple times already. And we're also looking to the mainland and elsewhere for models. We were fortunate to have someone attend a conference in Miami a couple of weeks ago to talk about insurance, because of course they're dealing with a lot of the same issues that we're dealing with on the insurance front. And we'll be tapping into other experts nationally. But we really are very focused on making sure that this is a Hawaii-specific solution that we come up with. By the fall, which I believe starts around September 21st, so that will be our pivot point. We hope to be pivoting to starting to socialize solutions and potential legislative actions for next year. And so we've essentially got about a month and a half of additional stakeholder engagement and fact finding and brainstorming. And then we will pivot into both developing and starting to socialize potential solutions. And then by the time of the 2025 legislative session, we hope to have not just a package that we can present to the governor, but a package that has already been largely vetted with many legislators and other stakeholders, so that there's a good foundation for its advancement in the next legislative session. On the next slide, what we're calling the pillars of disaster readiness, there really are two broad categories that we're looking at. One is resilience. One is how can we minimize the impacts, not prevent storms, but how can we minimize their impacts? And then on this other side is recovery. What can we do to make sure that Hawaii is positioned to recover quickly? Within each of those, there are two subsets. So on the resilience side, there is environmental resilience. What are the things that we can do to restore and protect natural systems that will reduce the impact of severe weather, as well as what can we do from an infrastructure standpoint? And that's both public infrastructure as well as private infrastructure, houses. And it's both a macro and a micro look at what can we be doing as a state to, I'll use the word harden. I know harden in certain contexts is not a good one, but when it comes to a physical structure like a home, we want to make sure that we can look at how to make them stronger and how we can help protect people from loss of life and shelter. On the recovery side, again, there are two subsets on the recovery side. One is the act of recovery, the physical and social, emotional recovery, which means rebuilding, both literal rebuilding and community rebuilding. And then there's the financial side of that. And this was a significant impetus for the governor's creation of this task force, or this advisory team, was the increasingly difficult insurance market. Insurance is generally available, but it's very expensive. And anyone who's gotten their hurricane renewal notice for this year can feel that. And there are a lot of people that are choosing, if they don't have a mortgage, or choosing not even to have the coverage. And so that's putting them in a great deal of at a great deal of risk. And we need to look to find ways to try to make insurance not only available, which it generally is, but also as affordable as possible. So those are the four pillars that we're looking at. That's a very ambitious set of issues. And we're not here today to say that we're going to solve all these problems. But what we do want to do is identify, as I said before, some of the foundational items, some of the building blocks that we can take and implement in 2025 that we will build on in future years. And so that's why this will be both a long-term look and a more immediate tactical look. As far as pathways to success, I think we can go relatively quickly through these next couple of slides. The point of this next slide is that it's just, again, acknowledging that this won't be easy. We will face both financial barriers, and we will face, community, potentially social barriers, because some of these actions may require changes, may require sacrifice, may require investment that will be difficult to swallow. But we're going to work to have a very broad communication plan. We're going to look to, as I said before, a wide range of financial resources, including federal funds. And we'll really try to bring both the legislature, other stakeholders, and the community along in this process so that there's a good understanding of what we need to do and why we need to do it. I've really already described the next slide, engagement and research. We are, again, casting a wide net, utilizing a lot of available research with the benefit of the consultants that I mentioned earlier and the experts sitting on both sides of me here and on the screen. There's a lot of knowledge that we're trying to tap into and collate and utilize. The last slide is just a couple things that I want to point out because this really gets to the confusion of what is the CAT and what isn't the CAT. The first point here, the first question is, will the CAT be addressing the difficulties condos are having getting affordable insurance? And I want to make it clear that while we hope the longer term policies that we help recommend and pursue will benefit the broader insurance market, our focus is not the very short term and urgent issues that the condos and multifamily buildings are addressing. The governor has set up a property insurance task force, and I believe there was even some action taken by the governor today related to that. But I want to make it clear that while we are addressing aspects of the insurance markets, that is not our specific mandate. There's also a question here, what is the CAT's role in developing the state's decarbonization plan? Because again, the name Climate Advisory Team makes it sound like all things climate. And there is a separate group that is headed by Mark Blick and involves a number of other people in this room and on the screen, is looking very proactively at decarbonization. There's a good effort there. There's overlap between our group and the Property Insurance Task Force and our group and the decarbonization work. So there's good linkages, but they are separate initiatives.
That's actually a compliment. Like, maybe I won't say that one.
And then finally, when can we expect insurance costs to stabilize? That was a question that actually came from one of the reporters early in this process. We have to understand that this is a long-term process and we're not going to immediately be bringing down insurance costs. But again, we hope that the actions we can identify will have benefit over time. So that is our presentation and our overview. I would first like to take any questions that you have, and I may deflect them to my smarter team members here. And then we may have a few questions for all of you too.
Great, thank you. Mary Alice?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, team. We really welcome this helpful brainstorming team, brain trust, to work on these issues. The Climate Commission, Climate Change Mitigation and Adaptation Commission is comprised of folks with full-time jobs. And climate is all of our job, but having the governor's team working on these issues is going to be hugely helpful to the communities in Hawaii and helpful to this commission as well. So I just wanted to make sure you feel incredibly welcome and deeply appreciated.
Thank you.
That's very thoughtful. And I know we had a cabinet meeting today, so the governor did announce his emergency proclamation and specifically on condo insurance. So, yep. So I think it sounds like there seems to be great coordination and alignment and things. I mean, I'm just impressed with how ambitious. This is like, are you guys up for hire? I mean, this is like, wow. But like Mary Alice, we welcome the opportunity to have you here. As you can see, we've got a lot of members. So I'm going to open it up. Commissioners, do you have any specific questions for the CAT, for Ben and his team? Do I see any hands up? Oh, is that Matt? Yes, go ahead, Matt.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Chris and team, for the update. Appreciate your all's proactive outreach to us at the county level as well. Appreciated some of the discussions even up to now, and more importantly, look forward to the inclusion and support and learning and sharing resources, et cetera, moving forward. We do, in addition to this group, we convene a 4-county sustainability network. Many of the others on the call participate in that as well. So we are here as a forum for those discussions as well.
Okay,
Thank you, Matt.
thanks, Matt. Anybody else on Zoom would like to ask a question or make a comment? I don't see any, so I'm gonna give the floor to you guys if you have any questions for us.
Yeah, I'm gonna allow my teammates here to ask a couple questions, but the one thing that I wanted to say in response to what you acknowledge is a very ambitious agenda, I think as we got into it, we probably started with a little narrower focus. And then as we got into it, we recognized that at least from a sort of diagnostic and identifying the challenge, I think it would be doing the state and the governor a disservice if we stayed too narrow. Now, I acknowledge though that doesn't mean we're going to solve all these problems, but I think that it's important that we identify the various pieces that we think over time need to be in place, and then work again, as I said before, with the stakeholders, the legislators, the governor, on how we prioritize addressing these challenges. But the more holistic view we can have, I think, the better as we go forward. So I think we designated Denise to be the first question.
Aloha, Chair
Aloha.
Chang, Mary Alice, everybody, Leah, thank you so much. And to those on the screen, Denise Antolini, a couple of comments before I ask a question. One is we are all volunteers. And some of us have been drawn out of retirement. And Chris said, those of you who are retired, you get to be leads. So anyway, we're doing this as a passion project. And our only purpose is to be helpful and to try to help you help everybody here advance whatever legislative agenda they have. That's absolutely at least my personal goal. Second comment, who knew the word cat would be so loaded? But we had cat before it became kind of a national controversy. Third thing I want to say is between all these pillars, I think I could speak maybe for Kavika too. We came in really knowing nothing about the insurance piece. We're learning rapidly from our colleagues and really enjoying that because they're all connected. So even though we have our areas of expertise or our networks, we're really trying to cross-pollinate. So it's been great, especially with support from the governor's office. My question, I'm just going to go right to it. It's a slightly different version of what I've shared with the team. But if you had a magic wand and you could put anything in the governor's climate package within this framework, what would you put in the package? Notwithstanding its viability of kind of political success, like dream big and big things will happen. What's your wish list? And if you don't want to answer that now, please let us know. And we do have interviews coming up with several components of people here, but we'd love to hear what is it that, and it can be the same as your own package, right? If you're willing to share.
Anybody on, commissioners that are on Zoom, or anybody want to tackle that question by Denise?
It's your chance. Wish list.
Bethany?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, we see a
Yeah,
hand
I'll-
raised.
Stephanie, go ahead.
I'm brave enough to jump in. Yeah, I think the magic wand is definitely a dedicated funding stream to address all these issues.
Bethany, can you say a little bit more about that? Flesh it out just a bit.
Yeah, I think when it comes to adaptation in particular, especially with our infrastructure projects, you're looking at billions of dollars. And yes, we're all trying to scramble and make the best use of the federal grant applications that we can. But I think that's not going to be, that's a one-time influx of funds, but we're going to need long-term strategies for how we fund these adaptation projects that we know are going to continue to to be needed and continue, the costs are going to continue to go up.
So a natural follow-up to that, and you don't have to answer this, is do you have any ideas you want to share with us now or later about, because we're going to throw a whole bunch of funding mechanisms on the table for discussion really soon. So we'd love to hear that. But that might, you might want to share that later. It's up to you. But if you want to share it now, that'd be great.
Yeah, I'm speaking on behalf of Hawaii County in particular. You know, we have a revolving fund that was authorized by the creation of our Office of Sustainability, Climate Equity, and Resilience. And the intent of that fund has always been sort of reinvestment, again, a dedicated funding source where we can reinvest in mitigation and adaptation. And so I think if there would be a way, a mechanism from the state that we could share a collective pot and then each county have sort of their fair share, that would be my ask.
Love it. Don't laugh at the end. It's good. Any
Thanks a lot,
others?
Bethany.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I just will add to that. So I think you are well aware that the governor is going to declare 2025 year of climate action. So I think this is really all nicely in alignment with that. And we are hoping likewise to repackage the green fee and in some way similarly to address some of the some of what Bethany is saying, but also as a mechanism, at least for DLNR, again, a mechanism to for sustainable funding, but one that's equitably shared, or at least shared amongst the users of our resources. So I think that that's you know, for us, at least at DLNR, that's some of the challenges, but also the opportunities that we have is how do we create that shared responsibility? I think if people have a sense of ownership to the resources, they may be more likely to be better stewards of them. So that the long run, we're not doing crisis management. We're really looking at long-term sustainability. So, I mean, for us, that is one of at least what we're hoping as a viable option for all of these resources that we're managing right now, which is critical to climate action. So, but anybody else who'd like to, this is your opportunity. This is the team. Chris and his team are the ones who have a direct line to the governor and the ledge. I mean, I'm impressed that you're going to have a legislative package and you've only been in existence a couple of months. I mean, that's quite impressive. Yes, Chip.
Hi, everybody. Just following up on Bethany. Bethany, what's the source of your revolving funds, if you are willing to reveal it?
We don't have that yet. It was authorized, but we haven't actually set up the dedicated funding stream for that.
So it would just be regular appropriation?
Yes.
I see. Because one of the things that we are wrestling with is how do we build a resilience fund and a recovery fund without further taxing the citizens, without further burdening our already overburdened budget, especially in light of the tax breaks that the legislature and the governor recently signed into existence. So sources of funding is, a major issue for us.
If I may, just to respond to, there's from a municipal level, there are ways if we have cost savings from our energy efficiency improvements, that could be a funding source. So there are ways to sort of put together a reinvestment strategy. And that's what we're trying to think about right now is where could those funds come from? Not necessarily just attack on our operating budget already.
Great, thank you.
I will not. Nice to see you, Laura. So Laura she's our DOT representative. So
Chair.
Anybody else? Oh, there you go. Is that Earl? Go ahead,
Yeah,
Earl.
Earl Yamamoto, Department of Agriculture. How will how can I word this? The work of the CAT, how will that interact with the existing body of laws and programs and objectives, policies, plans, administrative rules even that currently exist that kind of are going off into the same direction. Maybe not as broadly as the CAT's responsibilities, but you know what I mean. So at what point will the CAT's work up here interact with this mass of stuff that's ongoing right now? And how will that interaction affect the ongoing work by so many organizations within and without government?
Chair, Earl, the legislature passed a bill this last session asking the Office of Planning and Sustainable Development to update the Hawaii State Plan, Chapter 226, and provided funding for us. And so we are going to be embarking on a process. They gave us 2 years, which I am really, really grateful for, because the goal of this is to get as many voices into this process as possible, not one person in a cubicle. And Earl, based on some of our previous discussions about the role of agriculture, I think it's very important to find a way to take that concern on the part of farmers and ranchers that they might have to pay for some of the adaptations or mitigations all by themselves. This is a whole community effort. And I'm hoping that in updating the state plan, which is a state law, we will be able to reflect that and those of other kinds of stakeholder groups' concerns. The state plan is, I know Robin knows, has 3 pillars. Kavika knows. It's protect the natural environment, have a sustainable and prosperous economy, and support social justice and cultural protection. So it's balanced, but those things are often in conflict and competition. So it is always a challenge to figure out what the right balance at any point in time is, and it changes. And right now, climate change is the challenge that is going to be reflected in the update, I believe. Thank you, Earl. Okay. Does that help?
Yeah.
Or just make it worse?
Yeah, well, I wasn't thinking about agriculture, not from an agriculture perspective, broader. For all these, for all the environment, climate change, so forth and so on, all these commission and task forces and all these other opportunities for participation here within the department I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the agricultural industry.
Yeah, okay.
And again, how will the CAT, which seems to be I don't know if it's empowered in any form or fashion to create legislation and restrictions and so forth and so on, but how will the output as the CAT progresses, how will it interact with the existing body of initiatives and for the environment, for carbon sequestration and and the list goes on and on. How will that sync and will that synchronicity occur?
I can take a shot at that. Earl, that's a great question. Keep in mind that the CAT is not all things climate. If you were to narrow down our portfolio, it would be to focus on disasters. And, how can we better prepare for the next disaster? And how can we come back more quickly from that next disaster? So we're talking about things like hurricanes, fires, we're not necessarily addressing things like the slow march of sea level rise, the spread of drought, urban heat. We're looking at disasters that land quickly. And if you look around the state landscape, you don't find an established framework for addressing that, really. Mostly it falls in HIEMA, and we're working with HIEMA, of course. But putting together a fund where we could both build resiliency before the next disaster hits and react immediately when that next disaster hits. That's really what our more narrow mandate is.
And then if I can add to what Chip said, which I think was great, to respond further to your question, Mr. Yamamoto, I would say, I would remind everyone, our function is an advisory function, right? Ultimately, the credit for the changes in law, the changes in funding that end up happening, that will be something that will be a credit that is deserved at the legislature and by our governor. What we want to do here is to understand the things that are already in place. We want to understand the plans, the goals, the work ahead, and the plans that all of you and those who are joining by Zoom are working on already. And from there, develop our package of what needs to be. Right? But again, we are advisory only, and ultimately the credit for the work ahead will come down to our lawmakers and our governor.
That's helpful.
And if I can also jump in, I've had a great experience working with all these folks in various forms, but I've had the benefit of also getting to meet weekly with Chip and Chris and Mark. So we are all coordinating with these various different efforts, the decarb, with the CAT team, with CCMAC and other initiatives. So there is continued coordination through this, and it's been really, actually, since the establishment of this, really, really great to enhance that coordination between these different initiatives.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for the question.
Any other questions or from Chris, from your team?
No, I think, unless you have any other questions, I think that we accomplished our objective. Hopefully it accomplished your objective of really just introducing our effort, introducing ourselves and inviting input. And suffice it to say that we already have reached out to some of the folks on the screen and in this room to meet, and we will be doing more of that. But don't hesitate to reach out to us if you'd like to talk about any of these issues.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
And you'll find that this is something that it's also a challenge that I have sitting on CCMAC too, and a question I raise on. It's disasters disproportionately impact communities who can least afford it, right? They live too close to the ocean, or their homes aren't. How are you engaging, or how are you soliciting those inputs? Because they are, again, disproportionately being impacted, and they always feel like they're not part of the process. They're always told what to do, or they're being, but they're not. How are those voices being incorporated into some of the proposed legislation, or at least some of the, the information that you're gathering? I'm just curious about that.
Well, it's a very good question, and we're early enough in the process that I don't know that I have a perfect answer for you. Here's one thing I can say for sure is we very much have an orientation around trying to identify the most vulnerable places in our community. For example, one of the things that we're focused on with respect to resilience is homes that are not hurricane ready, which actually are the majority of our homes, and disproportionately in more rural and lower income areas. And so one of the things that we really want to do is try to figure out, and that we have been meeting with community leaders. For example, met with some folks in Waimanalo recently to talk about residential resilience and how could we go about creating a program that would encourage people and enable people to make their homes more resilient. That is just an example of one of the areas that we want to focus on because we think that climate equity is one of the most important things that we can address. That said, we have such a tight timeline that I don't know that we're going to be able to, for example, do community meetings in every community to get that input. So I'd welcome input from others. I will say that we are trying to reach out to folks that represent these groups, certainly on the environmental side. We're working with a very broad coalition of folks that are interested in environmental issues. We're reaching out to all the counties and their resilience offices, including Matt and Bethany have been involved in some of our discussions, and we've reached out to the mayors to say, what can we do at a state level that will benefit your communities? But I will, I guess that's the best I can do right now is say, it's very much on our radar. The issue of our limited time makes the means of outreach challenging, but it's something that we're very focused on. Does anyone else want to add anything, Denise?
I might just add, I think it's not visible, but the way I think about the pillars is they're wrapped in a lay of equity and cultural context. It's just, I think it's implied. Maybe we need to make it more visible. I agree with Chris. We're not going to be able to do the grassroots. So that means that everybody we speak to, we need you to bring that forward.
Yeah.
And you have to. I mean, that's part of Kuleana anyway. So we need to listen for that and ask for that input from each of you so that you help us bring that forward. The other thing I would say is we just had a great interview this morning. I won't say, any of the details, but when the issue came up of a pilot project in a particular low income community, the entire group was nodding and excited about that. So something that's already kind of part of our discussions, even though it's not drawn on the chart, but we need your help.
Okay.
And then I would say, without exception, everybody that of my 5 teammates here, each one of them is very much focused on climate equity and social equity in this. So I take comfort in that and believe that we'll really put a big emphasis on that as we go forward.
It's good to hear. Diane? Yes.
I'm Diana Felton. I'm a physician with the Department of Health. I really apologize for having to step out, a bit of crisis as usual. I'm curious, I know we have the governor as a healthcare provider, but I'm sort of in this consistent advocacy role of trying to really bring the idea of the health impacts of climate change to the table. I think we're doing better at starting to incorporate that here in Hawaii, but we still have a way to go. And I'm just wondering if you have had any thoughts about bringing a healthcare provider on to your team or someone who specializes in public health as sort of that link to sort of the climate change and health impacts. We're really growing our work on that at DOH, but I think there could really be a role for your team or even to have a consultant that has that sort of expertise, because there really is a growing network in Hawaii of physicians and other healthcare providers and public health folks who are really focusing on this idea of how do we prevent illness, injury, and death from these both climate disasters, but also just climate change in general. So a sort of suggestion, sort of question.
No, that's very welcome suggestion. Thank you for that. And I do think that, Chip made the point, and you did as well, that our role is really more around the shocks than the stressors. But as you acknowledged, there are health impacts from both of them. The third pillar that we talked about, and then I talked about the physical and social, that's really where from a recovery standpoint, the impacts are so both dramatic and long lasting, right? And we really need to have that medical and that sort of social social work or psychological, perspective on the toll that these disasters take on people and their lives. And so I welcome that suggestion and would love to talk afterward about how we can incorporate that.
That'd be great.
And it may be more focused on the disaster part, but
Yeah.
some of the other work that Leah and Chip and I and Mark and others are doing with the governor, which goes beyond the scope of the CAP, starts to touch some of those other pieces, the stressors, because those are, heat, as Chip mentioned, and just loss of things that we've always taken for granted, whether it's a beach or otherwise. Those all have real impacts.
Great. I'd love to chat. Thank you.
Yes, let's do that. Got my card.
Perfect.
Well, we have greatly appreciated you all coming
Can
and the
I,
presentation.
we actually, from the chat,
Oh.
just a comment from Nancy suggesting Lori Peak, director of the Colorado University Boulder Natural Hazard Center, was a keynote at one of our Hot OKKI gatherings and has a natural hazard workshop every July. And they have a lot of resources. And Carl Kim goes regularly. So that's just a comment there. And then also regarding the equity piece, I'd love to offer our services. We have Bill online and he does do a lot of community communication. So if there's any content that you'd like us to add in or questions you'd like us to put to community members, definitely welcome to incorporate that into our existing outreach strategy.
Great.
Chris, can I add, just building on what you both said, our last couple of questions are, can you provide us any resources, which you're doing right now? So please just email us. And if there's anybody you want to make sure that we talk to, we haven't given you the full list. It's a very long list. We have a short amount of time, but please tell us any resources you can lend us, and any people you want to make sure that we talk to, in addition to your wish list.
DHHL, have you guys talked to DHHL? I know, yeah, the Katie's on, but I think that they have a climate, is it a resilience or they have an entity, and many of their communities are disproportionate,
Yes.
are impacted.
They're very much on our
Yes,
list.
yes,
and
yes.
We're looking to set up
Yeah.
time with DHHL.
Now I think that would be a really good avenue to address some of these, most of the people that get impacted can't even afford insurance. So
right.
we don't even get to talk about insurance, but we've seen the outcome. So no, greatly appreciate all what you guys are doing. And again, for taking the time to be here. Yeah, Leah's our great conduit. This ensures ongoing communication. So again, and appreciate all you could. I know that you guys are volunteers and you are probably doing a lot more work than you might have been when you were paid, but it's passion.
Yes.
It's a calling and it's something, and it does matter. I mean, clearly we've seen just if you can, I think about 1 year ago, where were we and where we are today. It is quite remarkable what this, how much has been accomplished, but also how much more needs to be done. But just quite remarkable. So thank you. Really appreciate that. Thank you. All right, you are free to stay if you want to. All right, thank you so much. So next on our agenda is item number 3, county updates on climate policies and actions. Let's start from the east going west. So let's take Bethany first.
Aloha Chair, just real quick updates from Hawaii County. We're continuing to implement our integrated climate action plan and have 2 projects in particular that we're working on. We're drafting an RFP for a facilities condition assessment and energy management plan for county facilities. Hoping that comes out in the next month or so. And then with the help of DOT and their partnerships with grant writers, we recently submitted a proposal for clean heavy duty vehicle replacement, including charging infrastructure and workforce development. That's a bit of a pilot project for us just to test a little bit of the capacity for us to do that fleet conversion work. And then we released the final recommended draft general plan that includes a climate change section with goal, objectives, policies, and actions for both mitigation and adaptation. And the public meetings for those are coming up at the end of this month. And then finally, along those same timeline, we are also initiating our 5-year update to our multi-hazard mitigation plan. And that is including, of course, vulnerabilities to climate change in that as well, and figuring out how we can prioritize some of those adaptation actions and funding. Upcoming public meetings for those will also be at the end of this month. That's about it for Hawaii County.
That's a lot. Thank you so much for the update. Let's move on to Maui.
Maui had to take off.
Oh,
Kate had to take
okay.
off. Yeah.
Oahu? Matt, do you have any updates?
Yes, we similarly have several plans and strategies that we're now taking the next steps into implementation. And most recently, the city council adopted our adaptation strategy called Climate Ready Oahu. And we had an agency-wide kickoff with the mayor most recently, recognizing that not everything can be worked on all at the same time. So we had to prioritize certain efforts. And with the support and leadership of our Department of Design and Construction, we recently completed climate change design guidelines for city CIP. These are not intended yet to create new standards or to be the kinds of things that we regulate private development to, but to really incorporate the information that we know is readily available and to take those next steps to inform our own capital investments to make sure that they endure. And we're starting some trainings just this month. So it's really early days to walk people through this 3-step Excel-based process. But we're very excited after several years of development to get to this point. We have a project which needs a better working title, but is focused around climate finance risk and strategies for finance and funding. I wouldn't say it's exactly the same as, but people may be familiar with the state's most recent completion of the TOD funding strategy. So you can almost think of a similar process to really start to identify gaps in information. What is the big picture dollar risk to city operations? What are we keeping our eyes on in terms of potential revenue impacts from variable shoreline valuations and the longer term projections that we have from our partners at UHERO and otherwise? And what does that then mean for being a little bit more clear-eyed, open, and honest around the big sticker price for addressing some of these needs moving forward, sort of on the grander discussion today around aligning priorities and funding and dedicated revenue. So that project has not launched yet, but certainly over the next 2 years, we look forward to engaging either this body or specific departments at the state level along the way. We're grateful for a grant from the State Department of Land and Natural Resources, the Kaulunani Urban and Community Forestry Program, really prioritized in the State Forest Action Plan and other city goals and policies. We all gripe and claim that at the same time that it's getting hotter outside, the data shows that our tree canopy is in decline. And the hypothesis would be if our city tree standards, rules, and regulations were meant to achieve policies of our community plans, which are green, beautiful, healthy community forest, they're not working. And with that awareness around the 2 trends that I mentioned, we need to investigate what is not working and then think about the proposals and updates to ensure that we can have we can maintain and grow a healthier urban and community forest. And then along with the other counties and the state, we're in the midst of climate action planning. The city we're initiating the update of the 2020-2021 climate action plan, and we hope to share out more information next month. And though it was started prior to the Maui fire, the city recently, actually just last week, transmitted to City Council what we're calling a long-term disaster recovery framework. We know a plan has a very loaded connotation, and it's really near impossible to think about preemptive land use planning for post-disaster recovery. But there are many lessons from across the country and ongoing lessons from our colleagues and community members on Maui. And this was actually an action identified in the city's Oahu Resilience Strategy back in 2019, recognizing the the difficulty and challenges that communities had as we were seeing nationwide protracted recovery challenges and issues, and how do we make sure that we're aware of some of those challenges, including timing of federal funding, the kinds of community networks that will be important to reinforce pre-disaster. And there's a lot in that recovery plan, as well as some identified next term actions that we hope to pursue in partnership with other city departments. And though, lastly, the city has a climate change commission. It's a very different body than this one. They're volunteers appointed by the mayor and confirmed by city council. And we have 2 new incoming commissioners. It's a 5-person body. We're bidding mahalo and aloha to 2 of the OG original climate change commissioners from 2018, Dr. Rosie Aligato and Dr. Victoria Keener. On this call, Dr. Chip Fletcher was former chair at one point in time, and we look forward to welcoming Dr. Kirsten Olson from NREM, who was just confirmed this morning. And presuming all things go well, Dr. Kealoha Fox hopefully completes confirmation next month on September the 4th. That's all for now.
Congratulations. Thank you so much, Matt. Kawhi, they're excused. Can I do a little out of order? And I didn't ask Amy, but just as an announcement, the big, because I see Laura's also on the call, the big NOAA grant.
Yes.
Because Laura was helped to coordinate that from the beginning.
Yes.
I think that is worthy of some brief announcement, if you wouldn't mind.
Oh, I don't mind at all.
Yes.
Hopefully I get the title of it correct. And Laura, I hope you already got this news. Oh, I don't know, there's cameras everywhere. Hopefully you already got this news also, but it was announced about a little over a week ago that NOAA awarded Hawaii Sea Grant and partners the $68.5 million grant to be a period of performance over 5 years for INA-based thank you. INA restoration through community governance to advance climate resilience in the Hawaiian Islands.
Yeah.
And it is a partnership. Hawaii Sea Grant was the lead, the principal investigator on it, but it also includes DLNR, OPSD, Kupu, also KUA, and trying to think of the other big ones. And it is based at 5 moku across the islands. Most of the restoration projects will be taking place in those 5 moku, each on one of the main islands, as well as a small grants program that will also be established and run for other organizations that can seek support for doing restoration work as well outside of those moku. So that was really big news. It's a huge amount coming out.
And Laura.
I was gonna say, also, for the purpose of this, coastal is the whole state,
Right.
right? So it is really ridge to reef, Mount
Yeah.
Pitsumakai
Yes.
restoration work, not just the direct coast, but
Right.
since our whole state is in the coastal zone, it is basically everywhere, to do a lot of land-based and ocean-based restoration.
Yep. Thank you for that summary. And Laura, thank you. I know that while you were here, that was one of the big projects you were working on. But, here at DLNR, we really are aggressively pursuing Makatumakai, INA-based management. I mean, if we're looking at resiliency, we firmly believe that's for long-term solutions. Our communities are probably our best stewards. And if we can empower them with the tools, we may not avoid all disasters, but I think we can mitigate. So I was really excited, extremely proud, $68 million, that's 68.5 billion. Yes. Oh, yeah, no, you're, no one will diminish that. But I mean, I do think that is in alignment with a lot of the collective initiatives. And again, as part of all what the different counties are doing, but so many people are really working on this in different ways. And so, Laura, your hand is up.
Yeah, mahalo, aloha everyone. I just wanted to comment on that grant. Congrats and mahalo to the core partners that put the grant together and saw it through. The 5 communities are all critically underserved communities that are most vulnerable to climate risks. So to the point of the conversation earlier, it'll be good to see significant resources go to improving the resilience of those communities. So mahalo to everyone.
Yep. Thank you. So thank you, and thank you, Amy. I know I kind of cut you guy off. I could have asked Kavika to join in too, but yeah, no. Thank you. So I think those are the county representatives that we have. So any questions to our county representatives on any projects that they discussed? Matt?
I was remiss in acknowledging and thanking Dr. Felton and county counterparts. We hooied up on a public education and awareness campaign through this summer regarding heat health awareness and heat health risk mitigation. We know this is going to be an increasing challenge moving forward, so it was really great to see swift action across all the 4 counties and in partnership with Department of Health on generating some information and even some recent columns. Thank you.
Great.
I have one small question.
Sure.
Chair, if I can ask Matt a slightly more detailed question on your urban tree canopy study. I've noticed that the city has a 2-inch diameter for parking lot trees, and some of us may have noticed that they don't develop much of a canopy over decades. Any thought on whether that might be an area that the city would be looking at for change?
Everything's on the table, so we're cracking all the books open. There's all sorts of improved design standards, technologies, and other ways to ensure that the baseline standards achieve what we're intending to get in terms of urban and community forestry.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, good question. Seeing no other hands up for questions, I'm going to move on to the next item. Item number 4, discussion and approval of recommendations from the Permitted Interaction Group on CCMAC work plan, and I will turn that over to Mary Alice.
Thank you, Chair. In last fall, the commission approved a Permitted Interaction Group to look at a proposed work plan for 2024-25. And the group has to be 1 less than quorum of a sunshine group like this. So we were able to get the enthusiastic participation from the Office of Planning and Sustainable Development, the Department of Land and Natural Resources, the Hawaii State Energy Office, the city and county, thank you, Matt, the Department of Health, thank you, Dr. Felton, and DHHL, Katie, thank you for Nancy, and DOT, thank you, Laura. Permitted interaction groups, as you know, have to follow a 3 meeting rule, which means that they must be given a charge at the first meeting of a board or commission, and then report back at a second duly noticed meeting. And then at that point, they will the full commission will look at what was reported at the second meeting and could take action or make changes, and may or may not decide to adopt the recommendations of the work group. So the Permitted Interaction Group met on March 20th, April 17th, and May 15th. The proposal and ideas were presented at the July meeting. And this is the August meeting, so we're at the 3rd meeting for discussion and possible action. The commission members, we're going right into some of the suggestions for a work plan, that commission members work with their divisions and agencies to identify climate-friendly projects for the fiscal biennium 2026-27 budget requests, and departments to evaluate projects for climate impacts. Now, it sounds like from what we've been discussing this meeting, this is already being done, but we felt that that was an important element of the year of climate change. The next one is increasing partnerships between the state and county. As you know, the counties have a large charge when it comes to facilities, parks, roadways, planning, land use, all kinds of things that are really important for climate change resilience. So we wanted to highlight this as a priority for this work plan. And so you noticed I put some bullet points under there, develop projects based on DLNR's Office of Coastal Conservation Lands, which is their climate erosion management plan for public facilities and beaches, increase public building energy efficiency, accelerate fleet transition and support, and reduce heat stress and disease in vulnerable communities. Next slide. We put this in because the commission staff is working on a very ambitious plan that has been reported at every meeting. They received a $3 million grant from EPA to work on these tasks. And these are primarily mitigation projects to reduce carbon emissions, because that's EPA's clean air and clean water mandate. So next slide. In terms of policy recommendations, we thought that the commission over the next year ought to review Hawaii Revised Statutes Chapter 225P, which is our climate statute, and Section 3 is the commission itself, and to see what changes might need to be made or be recommended to be made to the legislature. And then also work on a climate disaster resilience budget package, which does reflect what the CAT will be working on. So want to support that work. Next slide. So these were just some of the details that might be part of an update to Chapter 225P3. And as you can see, it's adding some important members to the commission, inviting some people who have deep knowledge of the challenges we're facing, and also since there's an overlap in DBED and OPSD, removing the coastal zone management manager from the commission membership. That person can always attend, but doesn't necessarily need to be part of the quorum. Next slide. This was a very important part of our proposed work plan for this upcoming year. Vulnerable communities are the ones, as the CAT and the commission members have identified so clearly, are the ones who need the most help in dealing with climate disasters and climate stressors. So we added those two already initiated efforts that are going forward. One in DOT and one in Department of Health. Next slide. That was it?
Yep.
Yay. Okay, Chair, I turn it over to you to, if there's any discussion or comments, changes, perhaps if a motion is appropriate, and if there is such a motion to adopt the work plan that the PIG is putting forward.
Thank you very much, Mary Alice. So, commission members, do you have any questions or comments regarding the presentation, the update on the PIG's work? Thank you for you and your members. And yeah, this is now the 6th meeting that we've had. So I'm not too sure if any of the members who sat on the PIG, if you want to add anything, or how does the commission feel? Do you feel like you've had enough time to review and consider the recommendations and make a motion? I leave that up to the commission members. Thoughts, comments, hands raised?
I think one of the issues that we've lost quorum, so we won't be able to vote on it.
Oh, shucks.
But we can still discuss the item.
Okay.
And,
Okay.
you know, also if folks still don't feel prepared, is there a way that we can help you feel prepared for the next meeting,
Yeah.
since we will have to?
Yeah, well, we won't be able to take an action today. So, I guess if we take an action, it'll be at the next meeting. But are there any comments or questions that you may have? Because I would ask, we should take action on this at the next meeting. So please anticipate that at the next meeting, we will put this right up front on the agenda for an action. But any additional comments? Okay, seeing no hands raised, the last item on our agenda is the coordinator's update.
Okay. Where is it? Sorry. Here we go. All right. We're on the last item, everybody. Thanks for those of you who have stuck out here. First with the bad news. Our climate pollution reduction grant application was not awarded funding. I will just caveat this by first, just huge mahalo to Monique Schaefer, who really led this charge, and also pointing out that the awards that were made, there were 25 awards made, yet when this was advertised, they were expecting anywhere from 30 to 150 awards. So this is competition not with every single state in the country, but also many municipalities and tribes. So we're not totally sure why there was this shift, but we're requesting a meeting with EPA for feedback on it. And all is not lost, because we are reworking the application to apply for other funding opportunities, especially with our community partners that we're a part of this. So all the work is still going to be useful, and we're going to continue to work on finding funding for that. An update on our climate action pathways. You might have noticed a change there from plan to pathways. As Matt mentioned earlier, plans don't always have the greatest connotations. So we went with pathways, kind of stealing that from the decarb strategy. We've been doing a lot of outreach in the state, collecting climate stories. We'll be hearing a little bit more about that later from Bill. We're also going to be starting some technical meetings starting September. You folks might have remembered this from the PCAP process. We are hoping to build off of the work that was already done for the PCAP and get a little bit more deeper into it, as well as kind of ground truth some of our work. So we're requesting that CCMAC members support staff in participating in these technical meetings and help us to really identify the correct pathways and be realistic in what we can achieve and how things should be done, because we know that your staff have the expertise and familiarity with the processes that can really help us get this moving. And then we'll also be issuing an RFP for greenhouse gas calculation sometime the end of August, hopefully. And that will just help us both look at how different actions will reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and also project into the future what our statewide greenhouse gas emissions may be. Year of climate action, you all know it, you're all excited about it. As part of our outreach strategy, we're looking at creating some monthly themes. This is just a skeleton right now. We're very much hoping that we can work with all of you folks in refining this. If we're missing anything important that you think should be in a theme, if you think some of these are too overlappy, please let us know. We really went with themes that we think are a little bit more relatable to folks and people can connect with and identify with, rather than looking at things like decarbonization, adaptation, you know, those types of things that have, you know, kind of these larger scientific connotations, but things that people could really connect with. So, you know, transportation and energy will all kind of have cross-cutting factors in this, as well as natural resource management and, you know, food production, although it's on there as well. So we really are excited about starting to flesh this out, especially because we will be partnering with a class at UH Film School to create films on 8 of these topics. This is something that was done a few years ago with CCMAC and UH, and they're looking forward to this partnership again. So if any folks are interested in participating in this, we are looking for partners of CCMAC members or community organizations that might want to be featured, but also help us to guide the UH students on, you know, one of these themes here. Yeah, so if interested, please let me know. Grants updates. I'm going to pass it over to Jen.
Good afternoon, commissioners. I'm happy to say that Jonathan and myself were able to coordinate with DHHL to put in a $100,000 ETIP technical assistance application. We're not sure if they've been awarded it, but we'll find out shortly. And that's for a renewable energy microgrid for a community here on Maui. We've also gotten a number of projects submitted to our grants to project bridge, and I've been coordinating with the different organizations, looking at applications, finding potential partners for them, kind of refining their scope and what their organizational capacity is, so that we can really identify the appropriate funding opportunities for them. And over this month, attending the Federal Funding Summit, was able to connect with Department of Transportation, DAR, DOFA, and DHHL about some different opportunities, and we'll continue to reach out to all the different agencies. I've also been working on coordinating with the city and county grant tracking to kind of assess if some of the grants that we've been identifying for our different mitigation strategies are appropriate to include in their grant tracking. And the way that it's working so far, it looks like as different partners come to me, I'll flesh out that specific mitigation strategy that they're looking for and send them those grants. And I have about 100 grants identified to date. So just was able to identify another 50 over the last little while. Thank you.
Mahalo, Jen. And now we'll pass it to Jonathan.
Aloha, everyone. So yeah, basically just wanted to sort of provide an update on some of the work we've been trying to tackle with social vulnerability assessments. So last week we met with the Council on Environmental Quality because they are the ones that are sort of steering the CGIS tool. So I'm sure some of you guys are aware the CGIS tool is kind of the main index that's being used to determine whether communities will qualify for Justice 40 funding, qualify as disadvantaged communities. And there are a lot of recommendations that I think some folks here and others have made to helping that tool better represent the disadvantaged communities in Hawaii that aren't being identified that way on the map. or on their tool. So yeah, I really wanted to mahalo Representative Ichiyama and Scott Glenn who joined us in that meeting and really helped us sort of support the conversations and help make the case for why some of these changes are appropriate. So one thing that we were really pushing for is classifying DHHL lands as disadvantaged communities. So the way that the program is set up is that, you know, any federally recognized tribal communities are automatically classified as disadvantaged and therefore eligible for Justice 40 funding. So yeah, that's federally recognized tribes. It also includes like Alaska Native villages, which I understand are like smaller than the census tracts that the CGIS tool kind of relies upon. And they kind of stick to that like census tract data, but they have sort of allowed these Alaska Native villages to qualify, even though they're much smaller than those census tracts. So yeah, we're pushing for DHHL to for those tracts to be automatically identified as disadvantaged. We feel that this is, you know, a pretty defensible argument, seeing that you know, Congress passed the Hawaiian Homes Commission Act, and these, you know, Hawaiian homelands boundaries are sort of ratified by Congress. So it is sort of federally recognized in that sense. And you know, while Native Hawaiians aren't a federal tribe, they're recognized as deserving similar treatment allowances. So all that to say, I think it's we really made a good case for it, and we were told that they will talk to their legal team and get back to us about that. They also shared that they are releasing an update to the tool that is going to include recommendations from various folks. Unfortunately, they couldn't really share, you know, like when that update is going to be released and whether or not some of our recommendations are being considered for this update. So we're kind of, we're waiting to hear back from them. And we're also sort of working with the EPA and their EJ screen tool to try and implement some of these recommendations because the CGS does draw a lot of its, some of it at least, its data from the EJ screen tool. So maybe hoping that if the EPA and EJ screen implements these, that it might sort of help sort of provide, you know, a little bit more of an argument to push for that. So yeah, fingers crossed, hoping to hear back from them on that. And yeah, also wanted to highlight some really cool work that's being done by the Hawaii Data Science Institute. So basically they're working on producing a social vulnerability mapping database that's going to bring together like a number of really diverse data sets in Hawaii into a user-friendly tool. So there's, you know, a lot of these different data sets out there that need to be sort of they're designing scripts so they can automate downloading these data sets into like a unified database. I think there's a lot of work they need to do smoothing out the different like spatial elements and time elements of these data sets so that they can be integrated into something that's user friendly. So it's a lot of work that is probably over my head, some of the technical aspects of it, but I think it looks like it's gonna be a really cool tool to help folks demonstrate vulnerability to climate change risks, you know, kind of facilitate funding applications and extracting important details from communities that can then be used for grant applications and such. So one thing that I think it's really exciting because they're prioritizing like creating a GIS interface where users can combine all these different layers and shape files and weight them themselves to really like I say, like self-design indices and kind of customized indices that will be really helpful for their specific, you know, projects and stuff like that. So exciting work and really think it's cool what folks are doing there. That's all I have to share on that. Mahalo.
Mahalo, Jonathan. Next, we'll pass it to Bill. Oh, do you have a question, Mary Alice?
Jonathan, the state GIS program is in the Office of Planning and Sustainable Development, and we have been working on a coastal zone management social vulnerability study and also want to incorporate, data layers that might be into the GIS database that's available to the public so that they can create those maps for specific purposes. Do you happen to know what the point of contact is for the Hawaii Data Science Institute?
Yeah, I think I would probably point you towards Sean Cleveland. Have you met with him or?
And I can just jump in too and say that we actually have met with Joan folks and explained, this process and what we're going through and wanting to coordinate with the existing work.
That would be a UH Institute?
Oh, no, Joan
Yeah, no, I
oh.
know my Joan, but the Hawaii Data Science Institute is
Yeah,
at
it's UH, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and so we've met with them. We've met with Joan, and the UH has met with Joan.
Great.
We've all brought them all together to
thank
talk
you.
about,
Sure.
about this initiative, and we'll continue to work with them because we want to make sure. We were talking about, the potential of having this hosted at the state GIS site.
Great.
But we're many months away from it being ready, so it's being developed, and then we're going to kind of talk. But they're very aware of it, and we've also talked with CZM and the sea level rise map too. So we're staying coordinated.
Great,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
That's terrific. Thank you,
Absolutely.
Chair. Thank you.
Any other questions for either Jen or Jonathan before we go on? Okay, Bill?
Hello, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well. So just to back up a little bit, Leah mentioned a little bit ago about the climate stories that we're still collecting those. Last I heard, our intern, Bashar, who's been working on that, hadn't really received too much feedback on that. So if you guys have any information or any great stories, doesn't even have to be great, but some good stories, please feel free to get those to us sooner than later so we can get that incorporated. And but we really, and that includes you guys too, if you guys have any great stories. So we'd love to hear from you and have that intern work on that for us. So he doesn't have too much longer with us, I don't believe. So anyway, please send us those stories, or you can shoot the stories to me via email or do it online. We have a link, and that'll be going out in our newsletter. Again, hopefully our newsletter will go out this afternoon. So you'll see that coming if you're on our email list. And anyway, about our outreach, we try to reach all the islands on different outreach events. Since March, we've gone to about 23 different outreach events, and that's for Oahu, Hawaii Island, and Kauai. I don't have the stats right now in Maui. That person is unavailable, so I don't have those stats. But I do want to assure you that we have been reaching out to Maui, and I've been communicating to quite a few of the different community organizations via email back and forth. So we are reaching out to them quite a bit. I just don't have the exact stats on how many events we've attended. So anyway, 23 outreach events, nearly 1,200 interactions with residents. And that's, when I say interactions, that's talking to people at our tabling events and things like that. And out of those 23 events, I've attended 15 of those. And those were all on Kauai and Oahu. So I've attended quite a few of those myself. And then we've received 209 feedback comments for our climate action pathways. And that's either through our online form that we have that people can give, or people can write it down when we're at a tabling event, or as we're talking to people, we can also learn what their issues are, and then we will make field notes, you might say. So we write that down as well. And we also have a youth engagement that we're working on. We've identified approximately 25 potential youth organizations that are focused on sustainability and or climate initiatives. And so we're real excited about this because we're currently planning a youth engagement summit later this fall, where all the youth organizations will be invited to attend. They can have a table and interact and encourage youth to work with them. And they're going to be working on climate initiatives and policies, things like that. So we're real excited about this component that we're still developing. And if you if you know of any youth organizations out there, feel free to send them my way. If I don't have them in our spreadsheet, I can definitely follow up and get that included. And we did have one group that started this summer, and they're working together for a year. It's a youth fellows program put together by a colleague, and they're doing a deeper dive into the climate action pathways plan and getting feedback. So we're hoping to get that detailed summary in early January. And something else, like I mentioned, we're going to send out the newsletter this afternoon, but our subscriptions have really increased from 748 in January to about over 1,100 now today. So that's good. We're having some great articles going out in our newsletter. And last thing I want to mention too is that we are also keeping an online calendar of events that might be either sustainability or climate related. So if you know of any events that are happening around the island, because we're always having to search those events to maintain that calendar, feel free to send them my way so we can get those included. But anyway, we're all in this together. And, you know, for my interactions with the community, I receive very negative negative interactions about people that don't believe climate change is happening. Everybody believes it's happening. So the community is really supportive, and they're really excited about the commission's initiative. So I want to thank all of you for all that you do. So.
Thank you, Bill. I see Laura's hand up. Go ahead, Laura.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Bill. I just wanted to flag with all of these efforts towards youth engagement, Hawaii Department of Transportation, we are goaling to create our youth advisory council before the end of this year. And so if we can just stay connected and coordinate on the timing of the first meeting of our council and putting out the application process with maybe some of the events and outreach activities that you described, that'd be probably helpful to both of us. So mahalo.
Well, yeah, that would be definitely great. Yeah, we could include that in our newsletter whenever you guys get something more formalized, and we can also put it on our social media. We're on Instagram and Facebook. And then if we do have this youth summit, you're welcome to attend and have a table at that as well.
Yeah. Bill, maybe that's going to be part of DOT's youth advisory group, but the plaintiffs and the Navahine lawsuit against the state, they may be a really good group to reach out to, as these are obviously young people committed to climate change. So you might want to coordinate, Bill, with Laura in getting some of those names and see if they're interested in your youth engagement process.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. Leo.
Thank you, Bill. And you guys may have noticed, we have a new AmeriCorps Vista here, Natalie, who's taking notes for us. Natalie has really hit the ground running. Just big mahalo to her for just jumping in Gabby's shoes. We're lucky to have Gabby and Natalie overlap for a week. But really it's been super seamless, and it's wonderful having Natalie on board. So mahalo, Natalie. Want to say hello?
Hello.
Where are you from, Natalie?
I grew up in Portland, Oregon.
Okay.
Yeah. And Natalie also has ambitions of going to law school and taking LSATs.
I'm taking it on Friday.
On Friday.
So
Thank you, Natalie, for being here and not cramming into books right now. Very much appreciated. And then I think that's it from me.
Okay. That was the last on our agenda. Does anybody have any final comments they want to add? Not bad. 2:45. It was a full agenda, even though we deferred 2 items. So we will meet again. When is our next meeting?
September 7th.
September 7th. Okay, September 7th. So please anticipate that if you've got anything you'd like us to include on the agenda, but at a minimum, we'll have the PIG. Hopefully some action will be taken on that. And then the matters that we deferred from today's meeting?
It's September 4th.
Oh, September.
Yeah.
Saturday.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
September 4th, stand corrected. September 4th.
And it should be on everyone's calendars, and if not, please let me know and I will make sure to forward the invitation to you all.
Okay. With that being said, if there's nothing else, we're going to stand